Hi everyone, I'm Pat from the Sewing Studio Fabric Superstore in Maitland, Florida. And today I'm going to show you how to make an easy strip table runner in 5 steps. Now let me explain what it is I'm going to show you in this video, because we're going to have an option. We're going to have view A and view B. Here, this one, which is the simple, just the strips sewn together, is view A, and I'm going to stitch these two together as view A. Very, very basic, very easy, straightforward. For view B, I'm going to be stitching, this is view B. I'm going to be stitching the strips together, and I'm going to be splicing them up so that I have a little bit of variety. And I'm also going to be sewing these together and showing you how to do that. And you'll notice that in front of me I have a thin kit with the thin strips, and I also have a kit with the wider strips for each view. This is a thin and this is the wider one for each view. Step 1, we're going to sew the strips together. I have in front of me the 4 kits, and I'm going to sew them all on this video. This is the wide one. This is the narrow one. The wide strips are 6 inches wide by width of fabric. So 6 inches by 45 inches. The narrow strips are 3 inches wide by width of fabric. So I'm going to do view A and view B, and I'm going to start by removing these, and I'm going to start with this one, with the narrow. So what you're going to do is you're going to take them, lay them out. I already removed the backing and the batting from the kit. You're going to take your first strip, and you can see you're getting 3 inches by 45 inches wide or width of fabric. So you can take your strips in the order that they come off. You can do your own order if you want, but we have it all set up and ready for you. So I'm going to lay it right side up, my first strip, and then my next strip, I'm going to lay it right side down, line up my edges, and I am going to start by sewing these two together. Once I have those two sewn together, I'm going to flip it open and select my next one. So if you like to make it easier for you, you can lay one on top of the other and just keep picking from the top of the pile. You're going to do the same thing with the wide ones. These are 6 inches wide, 6 inches wide by width of fabric. So you would start by taking the first one off the pile, put it right side up, take the next one, lay it right side down, line up your selvages, and you're going to stitch it together. Now, your seam allowance that you're going to use, I generally do 1/4 of an inch. If you feel more comfortable making it a little wider, you can do that, but the important thing is that you're consistent all the way through. So if you decide to do it a little bit wider, 3/8 inch, just be consistent and use that width all the way through. I like to use a 1/4 inch foot, which is specific for this kind of project. But as I say, it's up to you. So now we're going to sew them together. Okay, so now I'm going to sew all my strips together, right sides together. No matter what view, you're going to do this with all the views. I've got my 1/4 inch foot on, and I'm using a stitch length of 2.5. So I have all my strips sewn together. This is with the fabric. You remember, you can use your sewing machine or you can use your serger. Once you've stitched them all together, whether you're doing view A or view B, you're going to take it to your ironing board and you're going to press from the wrong side, and you'll press all the seams in one direction. Now I've got in front of me, I'm just going to fold this up. I've got in front of me view A, narrow and wide, and I have view B, narrow strips and wide strips. You're going to do the same to all 4 of them. Okay, step 2. We're going to cut our width of fabric into 2 18-inch segments. So how am I going to do that? I've got my width of fabric here on my cutting mat. I folded it this way. Fold it. Make it nice and smooth. The more accurate you are in your pressing and your stitching, the more successful you're going to be at the end. So I've got it nicely smoothed out. And I'm going to take and I'm going to lay, now that I know that I have it folded well, I actually like to always use my cutting mat, the markings on my cutting mat. I'm going to lay it up against the line there. I'm going to take my ruler, and you can see that all of this, it's all different lengths. Don't worry about that because we're going to chop all of that off. So find a mark along here where you know when you cut that you're going to cut all that off, and that'll be our starting point. So I'm going to take my cutter. I've got it lined up. I know that I'm nice and straight. You just double check. I am a double checker. Check twice before you cut. Okay, now take and cut this off. So all those nasty ends are gone. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to measure 18 inches that way. So 18 inches, I'll lay my ruler. This is 18 inches. So I am going to cut over here. And I'm going to be doing this to all 4 of them. The 4 table runners that I'm making. Okay, so now check, check, check. 18 inches, I'm going to cut. Just put it to one side. Grab your table runner. I'm going to pull it up onto my mat. Line it up, get it nice and straight. Get your ruler. I want another 18 inches, so I'm going to measure with this. It takes me to here. Oops, just moved it a little bit. Line up my lines on my cutting mat with a line on my ruler. Make sure, double check, everything's nice and straight. It is important when you do this that you press it really well, the seams, that you press them open so that everything lines up well at the end. Okay, now I'm going to cut. And I have a little thread there that didn't cut. Let me go ahead and just cut that. Okay. So I've cut my width of fabric into 2 strips. Essentially what you could do is call this the top and the bottom, if you like. So what we're going to do is, there's my table runner. They're going to be sewn together. But first of all, I'm going to cut my other 3 table runners and do exactly the same thing. If you want to keep your scraps that you've cut off the end, you can trim them down, and then if you've done several Christmas projects or rifle paper, you could stitch them all back together and turn it into something else. Okay, so step 3, we're going to arrange the pieces and sew them together. So in front of me, I have all 4 table runners. I've got each table runner in 2 pieces, 18 inches wide. Let me just show you here so you're clear. And what I like to do is turn the second piece, instead of stitching the same print to the same print here, I turn it so that I have a different print. So you lay it right sides together. Whatever view you're doing, you're going to do this. You're going to lay them right sides together, and I've got different print there. And then you're going to sew from this edge to this edge. Sew your 2 pieces together, whatever view you're doing. So I'm at the machine. I'm going to stitch my 2 pieces together. And if you feel more comfortable using pins, you can pin it together, and generally I would put my pin going sideways so that I can easily take it out. So now I have the length of my table runner stitched together, the top of it. So at this point, the piecing of view A for the top is finished. So these are the thin strips. I'm going to put this to one side because it's done. And then the other view A is the wider strips, our beautiful little Christmas one. And you'll notice that the one with the wider strips is longer than the one with the narrower strips. And the reason for that is because it has less seam allowances. It's got less seam allowances stitching them all together. So this one will be approximately 55 inches long, depending on your seam allowances and how accurate you are. And this one will, the length will be approximately 48 inches. So there is a difference in length. And that would be for, that's view A. Okay, so now let's talk about view B. I have them here in front of me. They're pieced together. So if I want to get a little fancy, like this, let me show you an example. If I want to cut it up and repiece it back together, which I love to do because this is a lot of fun. This is kind of like therapy sewing for me. I love doing it and playing with it and kind of making it my own. So I have options that I can do. So I want to show you this one too while I'm at it. So if you look at this one, I have 4 squares across. So, and it's my wide strips. So if I wanted this look, I would take my ruler, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to cut this into 4.5 inch strips across the width of 18. So 18 divided by 4 is 4.5. If you wanted to play around and maybe make it a little different, you can do that. This one here, you can see, has only 3 squares across. So if you decide that you want to do it like that, 18 divided by 3 is 6 inches. So you would cut this into 3 6-inch pieces. And this is the length of my table runner. I've got it folded wrong sides together. I'm going to fold it one more time. Make sure, and this is where ironing and pressing is important. I've got it ironed really well. My seams are nice and flat. I always work on a cutting mat so that I can line up my edges, make sure that I'm being accurate. So I'm going to fold this again. I'm working on a small area here, and it's a little bit easier it's easier to fold it up and cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this into 4.5 inch squares. So I'm going to use my 6-inch by 24-inch ruler, and I'm going to line up 4.5 inches to the edge of my fabric. And then I'm going to take my rotary cutter, make sure you're lined up. I'm using, in this case, the markings on my ruler, and I'm going to cut. Four and a half inches. Next one. Press down. Another 4.5 inches. This is a Quilter Select ruler, and I love that it has very clear markings, and also it's grippy on the bottom. In other words, did you see when I cut and I just slid over? It grips the fabric, and the fabric comes away with it. So now I have my 4.5 inch strips. Now I've got all my strips cut and in front of me. So I want to show you how you can vary it up a little bit. So the easiest thing to do is to take the second one and pull it up, move it up. Can you see now what's happening? Then I'm going to take not this one, but the next one, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to move it up one block. And you can see now that I have a very pleasing pattern appearing here. And by the way, I did want to point out that if you're wondering what these are, they're octopus. This is an absolutely beautiful batik runner coming together here. So what happens when I do that, when I pull this up, is that at the other end of my runner here, I have this happen, which is fine. But what I'm going to do is, if this is pleasing to me and this is what I want to do, is I'm going to unpick this square here and this one here, and I'm also going to unpick this one and this one, because they're kind of obsolete hanging off the end there. And very simply, very easily, you've created a beautiful pattern on your table runner. Now, let's look at another variation. I'm going to put them back to how I had it before. Lay them back. So if I take every other one, I'm going to take this strip and I'm going to turn it around and put it in the other direction. And you know, when you're making this table runner, play with it a little bit and do what's pleasing to you, because this is part of the fun. If you don't have a lot of time, just keep it in the strips. But if you want to have some fun, you have some time. So I turned every other one, which is only 2 of them, this one and this one. I flipped it, so to speak. So when I do that, what happens here is that I have a run here and one down here of the same print. So why would I want that? Because I like to embroider. So, and I also like to use my magnetic hoop. I have a lot of customers ask me, when would I use a magnetic hoop? This is a perfect example. And just so you know what I'm talking about, so when you have a solid strip of color like this, you can embroider a message on there. You can embroider somebody's name on there or whatever you like. You could embroider some fish, because this is kind of a marine themed batik. So depends, you know, what you like or what you want to do. On the other side of this, I actually, on my solid stripes, I just embroidered randomly just some leaves, like some feather leaves. Okay, so it's up to you what you like, but you would have that solid strip on 2 ends. So I decided what arrangement I wanted for this table runner, and I decided that I was going to do the first one, and so I unpicked those 2 off that end, and then I unpicked these 2 off the other end. So I'm going to discard those, and now I have my layout here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I could start over here or on this side, but I would flip, put my right sides together, and then line up your edges, line up your seams here so that they have a nice, they join, and then go ahead, and in this case, I would start pinning and put pins here so that you can keep your strips in place. So then you take this to the sewing machine, sew it together, stitch the next one, and stitch the next one. And so let me go ahead and show you how I would pin it. I like these pink head. These are extra long magic pins. They're very, very fine, so you won't have any trouble ever piercing your fabric. But so I would go ahead and put a pin in there and then keep going down. And then stitch it together and take your pins out as you approach your pins, and then keep going this way. Now let's work on our other table runner for the view B. This is the narrow strip runner. As you can see, I've got it folded in half. Here's my fold here. So I flipped it, folded it in half, and then and line up your edges nicely here. Line them up so one is on top of the other. Then take it again and fold it again. Line it up. Okay, so now I'm going to lay it out and bring it a little bit closer to me here. Lay it out nice and flat. And I'm going to do the same as I did to the marine life one that I just showed you. I'm going to cut 4 4.5-inch strips. So I'm going to use the measurements on my ruler. 4.5. And then you can also look at the lines on your ruler and help those. You see how they're lining up so nice with the actual strips, the pattern of my table runner. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Takes me to the edge. I'm going to cut. Make sure that you have a nice sharp blade, and then pull it, separate it. We're going to do another one, 4.5. Next, 4.5. And again, if you wanted to vary this one a little bit in your widths, you could. It's up to you. It's your work of art and your table runner. Okay, that one didn't cut all the way through. You got a little thread caught. Okay. So now what have I got? I have got, I'm going to put these to one side. I'm going to open up my strips. You can pull it down a little bit. You know, when you're making a seasonal table runner, it's nice to do something that's quick and that you don't spend hours on, because you're only going to pull it out for that time of the year. But what you could think about doing is that you could make the other side of this, instead of the fabric that comes with it for your backing, if you wanted to, you could do it Christmas on the other side. So you've got a reversible one. Just a thought. That way you can keep it out after Halloween or pull it out. Okay, so now I've got my 4 strips here. Oops, I got this one turned around. You lay it out. So now I'm going to do something very simple with this one. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take the second one and I'm going to flip it. Flip. And that one goes there. And you can see, because I've got 10 strips as opposed to 5, I've got an even number. Wherever they line up, I have no duplications, all completely broken up. See how easy that was? So the next thing that I would do is turn this, put it right sides together, take it to my machine and stitch, and then open it up. Make sure that you always iron and press them very well. And then you're gonna take these two right sides together, stitch it on here, and then the same with the last strip. And you've got a really beautiful, colorful Halloween table runner, or whatever season that you decide to get. So you see how easy that is to do and fun. So now I'm sewing my View B strips together using my 1/4-inch foot. You may notice that some of these seams are serged, and if you didn't know that, I often tell people, if you own a serger, you can use your 4-thread serge. So I had a little bit of assistance just sewing them all together, and we wanted to show you how you can use a serger also for piecing. When you put your stitch width on the correct setting, you get a perfect 1/4-inch seam. Our first strip is done. Now I'm going to take the next strip. So now I have view B pieced. Here is the wide strip one, and here is the narrow one of view B. Step 4, we're going to quilt our top to our batting. So I already have laid my piece top on top of my batting. The batting that we use for these table runners is Quilter's Dream Poly. It's a runner roll, so it already comes 18 inches wide on the bolt, ready to be cut into lengths for whatever runner you want. So it's really, really nice. And it's polyester. So looking at my piece top, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different techniques that I can use to quilt it. Your strong point may be free motion quilting, so you could do some free motion quilting. A lot of people have maybe a little bit of trouble with that, so you could just stitch in the ditch. If you don't know what that means, most machines have a special foot that marks the center of the foot, so to speak. It might have like a little tongue on the foot, and so you could stitch in the ditch, in other words, where your seam allowance is, because you really do want to attach your fabric to your batting. So I'm just going to play around a little bit. I have my ruler here. So looking at this, what are the possibilities? This measures 18 inches wide, so I could stitch in the ditch, or I could take my ruler and just playing around with it, I could take it point to point, and I like to use a chalkener. This is one of my favorite markers. When you take the lid off of it, it has a little wheel, and all it does is that it releases loose chalk as you roll along. So it comes off very easily at the end. So this is my simple narrow strip runner. So I could stitch in the ditch, just going this way, and I wouldn't have to mark it. I'm just showing you on this, to be clearer on this video, I could just stitch in the ditch. Now, this is a fun one. I love this one. So there's a lot already going on this table runner. Again, you want to have some fun. I mean, the first thing I see is that you could draw lines again with your chalkener. You'd probably want to use the white chalkener, and you could come down like this. You could do a zigzag on every one. Depends how much time you want to spend, right? Now the last one it's stunning. This is gorgeous, this one. I'm very partial to this design, to the large strips and what we did by just shifting the blocks down. On this one, I often say, when customers don't know how to quilt something or what to do to embellish it, sometimes I'll leave my project out for a few minutes or an hour, and I keep looking at it every time I walk by. I think, I let the fabric do the talking to me. And on this one, I see a lot of curves. The octopus, the movement of the water and the batik. So I see a lot of swirls and curves. So I'm just going to do like a free form stitching, and I'm going to use Kingstar metallic thread that runs really, really well. It's by Dime. Step 5, we're going to finish our table runner. And what I'm going to show you is going to apply to all the views or the other 3 table runners that we made. But I'm going to be working on this one. Now, I am going to trim all the batting off. And at this point, you also want to square off your ruler a little bit. So, and what I mean by that is maybe when you finish here and you start measuring, it may be a little bit off if you're a beginner sewer or you didn't press it quite right. So I always say that everything is fixable. And certainly this is. So at this point, I'm going to square it off. And you can use a long ruler if you want. The 6" by 24" from Quilter Select is my favorite. But it's nice to have other rulers too that fit the job. And in this case, I like big square rulers. This is Creative Grid's 15.5" ruler. Has a lot of markings on it. We're kind of going to disregard all of that. At this point, you can see, I'm going to put it on the white here. You can see that it's square, obviously, and it's big. If I was to use this ruler, I can use it, but what I like about this is that I can tell at a glance by using just the straight markings that my table runner is pretty darn accurate. So now we have to put our backing on. So what we're going to do, open up. This is what came in the kit for this. It's another batik. If you like, you can give it a pressing. This is the way you're going to finish off your other views. And you would be putting with a batik. It doesn't really matter what side you use. Sometimes you may think it has a right side. If you do, you're going to put your right side to the right side of this. And then you can pin this. You pin this to this. You're going to come here. You're going to leave an opening of about, I usually leave about 6 inches. So you start here. And you're going to do about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Start here, go all the way around, all the way across the bottom, come back, and then stitch up to about here. If you like, at this point, you could trim this down to this size, or you can stitch and trim it after. I'm actually going to take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch it and then I'll trim it. But if you prefer to trim it now, you can do that too. I'm using the appropriate walking foot for this machine so that both layers feed through at the same rate. Get rid of all my scraps. So now, sometimes if you have a lot of bulk in the corner, I might just slice a bit of the corner off so that it turns easier. Check these. And remember, you do this for all the views. This is how you finish it. Generally, what I'll do is I'll reach through here. I'm putting my hand or my whole arm in here, and I am going to push the corner in. If I had a point turner, I could use that. And then push the other corner in. And then I grab it. I grab the end here. See how I'm grabbing the end? And then I'm just going to turn it through. You want to kind of roll the back. You see how I'm just rolling it a little bit? See how nice this is? Oh my gosh, this came out beautiful. So the next thing that I would do is give this a good pressing. And then this here, this end, you would just turn it in and then give it a whip stitch along there. So almost finished. Whip stitch the end, give it a good pressing, and then just top stitch in. I would probably go about 3/8 of an inch in, and I'm going to leave my walking foot on to do that. So this is how you would finish all 4 of your table runners. Look at how beautiful that is. They're very, very easy, very fun, and very fast to make. So actually it's a great project if you're a beginner sewer. Okay, so on the first one that I have on top here is using a kit with the wide strips. It's also, I embroidered it. So for those of you who have an embroidery machine and would really like to put it to work, these are perfect for that. So this one has Thankful embroidered in the center. And then I have little embroidery designs that I kind of just put randomly or embroidered randomly on there. So that's the actual quilting to hold my front to my back, so to speak. So this one is absolutely beautiful and great for fall. So let's put that one away and look at this. This one is gorgeous. This is a Christmas one, and this is a variety, so to speak, on the wide strips table runner. Here, this is all serged together, and this is one of the narrow strip kits. And this I serged together with my flat lock stitch on my Baby Lock Triumph, and I used the Dazzle thread. If you purchase one of these kits and you're not sure how, let me grab another one here, in what order to stitch them together, we actually have put them together for you in a nice, pleasing manner. So when you take your strips out of the kit, you could actually just put them in a pile and just go grab the next one, grab the next one, grab the next one, and stitch them together. And you'll see that they form or come together beautifully. And also, while I've got this kit in my hand, know that in every kit we've included the batting for the table runner and also the backing, which would be the purple here. So everything is ready to go. Okay, here's another one. This one again is the narrow strips stitched together in the order that they came out of the package. And we have done some embroidery here, so there's a lot of nice detail work. We've got little turtles, some seaweed, and we've coordinated it with the colors on the print, and has a beautiful aqua background. Next, we have a lot of kits made. We know from making these videos and having kits available for you that we've taken the guesswork out of what fabrics to put together. So we have a lot of these ready to go, and they're all absolutely beautiful. This one is fabulous. They're all beautiful. They all bring something different to the table, so to speak. So this is a very good example of one of our wide strip kits. I love this one. If you have children or grandchildren, or this is a really fun, happy one. And this is a thin strip, and it's just quilted in stripes. And we actually use metallic thread, so you can't maybe see it on camera that well. But with this one, I think that the prints do the talking, so to speak. It's got a beautiful bright red. So some of them, if you wanted to, you could use the other side. Something to think about when you make them, that you might want to make it reversible so you can flip it over and use the other side at another time. This is another variation of a Halloween one. Again, this is done with a stitch through the channel quilting, which I love. I love using this kind of stitching or quilting on my bags. It just really adds a different effect to it that's very agreeable for most prints. And this one, let's see what the back is. This one's got a purple grunge on the back. Okay, so this one here is our Christmas batiks. And this is a variation of, again, the thick strip runner. And I quilted it with a very long top stitch with a 12 weight spaghetti thread. And then you may have noticed I even have some behind me. So we've been hard at work putting together these runners. And honestly, we love doing it because they're simple and easy. This one here is the first one we made, and this is a rifle paper. Beautiful, beautiful. And then we have another Halloween one, and then we have a Christmas one. I hope you enjoyed my new tutorial. The kits and pattern are available online at sewing.net or in the store. Thanks for watching.